After today's episode, I am sure that I am a true lunatic, y'all. I'm a lunatic, and I mean that in the best way of best sense of the word. And I say that because what is a lunatic? It's a lunar lover. It's someone who loves the moon. And after talking with my friend and astrologer Celeste Brooks, I have to say and I'm an astrologer. Of course I love the moon, but Celeste in our conversation made me have a reminder of the appreciation that I truly have for the moon, for lunar things. That's what we talk about in today's episode. So, who is Celeste? You've probably heard of her, but if you haven't, Celeste Brooks is the founder and principal astrologer at Astrology by Celeste LLC. Understanding her celestial design unlocked the mysteries of her personality, deepened her relationship with others, and provided a beacon for her life's purpose. Since living in sync with the celestial cycles, she manifested early retirement from her corporate career. We talk about that, y'all. It's pretty impressive. Celeste feels a calling to guide others on their path. Her offerings include personal readings, horary consultation, cosmic success coaching, group events, and moon mastery, trademark, classes. Her podcast, Celestial Insights, offers weekly guidance to surf the cosmic tides. She discusses astrology of current events on her popular Instagram lives. Before transitioning into astrology full time, she had a successful sales and marketing career at Fortune 500 companies spanning over 25 years. She has an undergraduate degree in integrative biology from UC Berkeley and an MBA from St. Mary's College. Her website is astrologybyceleste.com. She also has a free gift. So if you stay tuned or look in the bio, in the link, in the blog post, any of the things, you'll see she has a free gift for setting intentions with moon phases, which is really wonderful. Again, her podcast is Celestial Insights Podcast.podbean.com. You can get her on Instagram at Astrology by Celeste. Same for YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and you can also find her on Yelp at Astrology by Celeste Oakland. And LinkedIn is also Astrology by Celeste. So if you're curious about the moon, if you're curious about the eclipses that are coming up, if you're curious about what it means for you, for the collective, how you can work with eclipses, how you can work with your moon phase, what the moon phase is and what that means and why it's so important, and then how it's connected, at least this year and last year, and it'll be next year, to the planets Venus and Mercury, our planets of love and romance and lust and action. Stay tuned to this episode. I think you'll really enjoy it. Hey there, welcome back. I am here today with amazing astrologer. Oh my gosh, wonderful person, friend of mine, Celeste Brooks. So, welcome, Celeste. So glad to have you here.
It's a delight to speak with you today.
Yeah. So today, so Celeste, we've encountered each other in some different places, as you do as an astrologer and just as a human being in life, right? You have an amazing Instagram account where you do moon horoscopes every day. And I know we were both in the School of Traditional Astrology where we learned horary astrology together. So we're big fans of that. And we met in person at ESAR in Denver this past year, which was an amazing experience. And
It
so
was so good.
right? Yeah. So I think, on this podcast, on this show, I really like to talk to people about what they do, why they do it, and how it makes people's lives better, how people can thrive and make the world a better place, and then how astrology makes the world a better place. So I'm really curious, from your perspective. I'll start with some big questions, but just introduce yourself and if you have any thoughts on any of those questions.
Yeah, so I'm Celeste Brooks, an astrologer, coach, intuitive, and podcaster. And my background is I spent over 25 years in corporate America doing sales, marketing, and business development. So I have that business background. My degree is in biology and I have an MBA. So yeah, astrology took me by the hand and just blew my life open in terms of helping me understand myself so much better and have compassion for my, some of the traits that I have for myself, as well as other people, and understanding the timing of life events. I think that are the two big things that make astrology help the world make a better place. Yeah, understanding yourself, others, and the cycles of life and life's ebbs and flows. Yeah,
Absolutely.
those
I
are
just
the
got
things.
chills. Like, so we have this in common. We've both have had corporate careers, and then astrology kind of just like grabbed us by the hand. So tell us, like, what was going on? Like, what was your like corporate career? How did you know? How did you find astrology? How did you know that you needed to make a change? What impact did it make on you?
Yeah, so my corporate career, my background's in biology, so I work for life science companies, helping them make, manufacture, and discover protein-based therapeutics. So totally, so
Oh,
different than astrology. Yes, yeah. But as a kid, I was so in love with Greek mythology. I even took some classes in college just because that the myths and the ethos, I just loved it. And so I came to astrology a little later in life where I was invited. I love to go to the spa Rancho La Puerta in Mexico. And one year there was an astrologer there, Leslie McGurk from Florida, and she did a reading for me and then invited me to a course. And from the minute I started studying astrology, it's like that was it. It just blew my mind and I couldn't get enough of it. One of these addicts who like lived and breathed and ate it until, you know, at some point I thought, oh my God, I could do this for a living. And so it was this peeling of the onion when Uranus went into Taurus in 2018. I'm a Taurus sun, Aries moon, and Cancer rising. So my Taurus sun's at 12, but I swear I felt it the minute it went in because it started making me feel like something needed to change in my life. I this like my career, which was very successful, but it just felt like it was losing its meaning for me, or like, and it's like, is this what I'm going to do for rest of my life? This
yeah.
stressful go go go, um, yeah, corporate gig, working for the man, and I just realized I didn't want to do it anymore, but didn't see a way through. And then astrology helped me find the way. And I wanted to retire by 50, and I missed it by a week, but that's all right.
Got that. That's amazing. Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
pretty phenomenal. Okay, so many things that you said about your story. First of all, I'm pretty sure Leslie McGurk is my aunt's neighbor, like her next door neighbor.
Cool.
I think it's so funny. I'm gonna have to connect with Leslie sometime, especially now that we have like another connection. But like,
Oh yeah,
before,
she's great.
and doesn't she write books?
Yeah, she wrote The Power of Mercury.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book, which that's when she was promoting it when I met her. And it explains so much to me, especially about I am divorced and about how the problems, which were about communication in my marriage, were related to our Mercury sign. So yeah,
Wow.
that also really was eye-opening for me, understanding people's Mercuries and how they communicate differently. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so huge. And the day we're recording this, Mercury is stationing, so I'm not surprised. He's made an entrance, and it's Mercury's day as well.
And how funny we're talking about Leslie when it's Mercury's day. Yeah,
I
with her
know,
book.
it's wild. So
Yeah.
prior to that, like vacation retreat thing that you were doing, were you into astrology? Did you read sun sign horoscopes? Like, did
I
you
read
know?
sun sign horoscopes,
Yeah,
but I wasn't studying it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
was
I found
just,
it interesting. I always felt the Taurus energy. Yeah, like I am such a Taurus. In fact, I'm a Capricorn in disguise because I have Saturn on my sun. Uh,
ooh,
yeah.
I love that. And I can see that because like I wanted to retire at 50. I missed it by a week. Like that's a super Capricorn sentiment, you know? And even being like it's Cancer rising, right? Being the Cancer
Yes.
rising, pulling in that Capricorn axis as well, the opposite sign. That makes a lot of sense. And then, also that Aries moon, another cardinal energy. So having a lot of cardinal energy, having that fire in your moon, being able to push things forward, being able to start things, and that makes a lot of sense. So we're in the midst of a genius right now with the biology and the background. I love this. I love when I find out such interesting things about people. So what drew you to what you focus on in astrology now? Do you think having that background in like sciences, was a natural sort of like evolution into astrology at all, or?
Yeah, because astrology is just math, and then and math and connecting it with the signs and symbols,
Yeah.
the symbolic nature of, and the archetypal energies. Yeah, it just was such a nice fit because I've always been like, I'm a perpetual student and learner. I have Mercury in the 11th house, trine Pluto in the third house. So when I go in, like, and something interests me, good
Yeah.
luck getting me off of that subject. So I feel like it was a natural segue, because once you start doing the hypothesis, the investigation about like things, and people confirm it, you get more proof and more proof and more proof about
Yeah.
how as above so below is so accurate. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Mercury, your mind, your thoughts, what you
Yeah.
think, how you communicate, and then Pluto, which is super intense and can kind of like dig down deep into the earth and like pull up things and like really churn through it. And when you have those in a trine aspect where it's easily flowing, it means you're a really intensely deep, thorough researcher. And so you know your stuff as a trained professional scientist, and then coming into astrology, I actually think that's incredible because one of the things with astrology is it real? And a lot of quote unquote sciencey people don't necessarily believe in astrology. So for you to say, you know what, no, I have that background and I understand the methods and I understand how to create a hypothesis and how to make something seem sound, and so and yeah, it's valid and it works, and you've even seen it in your life and how you communicate with your ex or with other people in general. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
it's amazing. So, but one thing about it is then I found myself getting so much into my head, and I got a reading from someone, and they said, I think you should check out oracle cards, because I have Neptune at the anaretic 29th degree of Scorpio. So Neptune about intuition, and um yeah, Scorpio, that water sign, and it's a wide opposition, but it's opposite my Mercury. And she suggested that, and that as well was life changing for me, because really helps you connect into what you cannot necessarily explain, but that higher level of consciousness. And I just was like, so much was so accurate about it once I started getting into it. That was another life changing thing.
yeah, it's like validation. And it actually reminds me of that
Mhm.
experiment. Maybe you remember what it's called. I can't remember what it's called, but it was when like the scientists they put it was sort of like a double blind study, except that they had cameras in there and they would take a red light and kind of pulse it through. And the red light was supposed to go through one of two holes. And
Mm.
based on whatever people were thinking, the red light would go like more through one hole or more through another hole. And
Ooh.
it reminds me of what you're saying, because it's like we don't know, we can't see, we can explain, but there is some magic here that we don't understand, and it proves that there's magic that we don't understand and we don't have to do anything about it. But there's some connection between our thoughts and what's invisible and what then manifests in reality.
Mhm. And once you start practicing horror, oh man,
Yeah.
just the universe is just like, it's
Yeah.
just incredible, the timing of when people ask you your question, when you pull the chart. And horary is the astrology of burning questions, where someone asks an astrologer a question,
Yeah.
and the astrologer, when they understand the question, pulls a chart, and that chart is like rooted in the querent, the person who asked the question's natal chart. And like,
The answers you get, like if you lost something, or if there's
yeah.
a person, if a person's lost, or if you're wondering about your relationship with the person or something like that, it's like it can tell you if it's near a window, if it's like near something blue, if it's like if it fell down, or if it's on the east side of town, or
Yeah.
all of this stuff. It's really really cool. And then the timing of it too, like when you'll find it, when the person will return, like if you lost your dog, like where he is and when he'll come back, or if you'll ever find him and when you'll have more answers, and if it'll be sad or happy or like confusing, like everything. It describes it so perfectly, and people get amazing clarity out of it. So yeah, I totally love horary. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's another thing that kind of helps people to thrive with astrology, is like giving people answers, giving people insight, giving people guidance,
Yeah.
right?
And it's like unique guidance you wouldn't get anywhere else. Yeah, it's really incredible that it can help people think about the dilemmas in their life on a deeper, more soulful level than just the surface. Like, is this a good job or is it not? I mean, it can give you some more insight into like your own motivations and
Yeah,
like who you may be working for and what kind of company it is and all of that.
that's so true. So tell me, what do you love to work with your clients or in your practice in general with astrology? Like what's your main focus, or what's the thing that you love the most?
Well, I specialize in the moon. I'm a Cancer rising, and the moon rules the sign of Cancer. And I have my moon in my 10th house. So it's
Oh,
like my most elevated planet. So, yeah. So it just connects with me so much, especially coming from the background where of corporate, where in sales and marketing, where it's like go go go, achieve constant, like it's just this straight uphill thing where you're always, the goal is farther. Whereas when you start working with the moon and her natural cycles of waxing and waning, um you start to like connect into life in a more calming manner, because there is growth and decay. Things don't just, and there is a time, there's a season for everything, and some things in your life are need pushing at certain times and letting go at other times. So I found that working with the moon was life changing, and even just knowing what sign the moon is in the sky and seeing it connect in like with your natal chart. Like, I pay bills when the moon is in Leo because I have Leo on the second house cusp, and like just
I love that.
it just even though that little magic, and it's not intentional, it's just I'll be sitting there paying bills and I'll be like, where's the moon? And it's like in Leo,
Sure
and
enough.
it's like yeah, and knowing myself for like, I always, there were certain days where I would just be like not getting much done and like really pushing myself and feeling frustrated. And I know when the moon is in Pisces, there is no point in me like pushing myself
Oh
too
my gosh.
hard.
I love
Whereas when the moon is in Virgo, I get so much done. I
yeah.
love a Virgo moon. So even just managing my schedule based on the moon has helped me so much. Yeah. So I love teaching people about it. I have a moon mastery signature course, which teaches you all things about the moon and the moon phases and your natal chart. And it's really a tool for self-discovery. Understanding my moon has been like just mind-blowing for me in
Yeah.
terms of, yeah, my life.
Yeah. And there's so much with the moon, and I love it because you can see it.
Hmm.
I mean, unless it's cloudy, which happens in the north in the winter, especially. But you can see it, and so you can work with it, and you really feel it. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we know the tides are somehow connected to the moon, and we don't quite get it, but like it's something we've heard, probably most of us.
Hmm.
And we've got stories and lore about full moons and wolves howling at the moon. And so it's something that we're intimately connected with. And the moon is about our bodies and our emotions and our emotional life. So we can really feel it. And I think when you feel something deeply, that's when it sticks. And I've actually been thinking about like sun sign horoscopes a lot recently,
Oh,
because as astrologers, we mostly do rising sign, right? We
yeah.
like, okay, well, you don't go by your sun sign, go by your rising sign, because that's what actually happens in the world. But I also read my moon sign, even though I was born during the day, because it's my emotional life. And so even if it doesn't happen to me, I can see that that's what's happening to the people around me and how that can influence me. And I think
Yeah.
for people born at night, if you don't know your rising, but like you're born at night or something like that, moon sign can be really like another go-to for you with your horoscope, because the sun sign is like it's the energy that you use to achieve something,
Hmm.
And you're like, yeah, that's just me. You kind of take it for granted. But with the moon, when I found out that I have a Scorpio moon,
Uh-huh.
actually, when I found out most of my chart, I fought it all. I was like, no, I don't want to be a Pisces rising. No, I don't want to be a Scorpio moon. Like, why? And it's funny, I find some other Scorpio moons, they like to use sidereal because
Ah,
it gives them a Libra moon most of the time.
ah,
And I mean, I would have a Libra moon and sidereal, but I stick with the Scorpio moon because I do feel deeply and intensely like a Scorpio moon
mhm.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. And the moon is your subconscious. So one of the most beautiful things about working with the moon cycles, where the sun and the moon come together every month and then whisper secrets to each other about what they want to grow in your life, and then like sticking with it to the waxing to the full moon culmination and the waning, you can really make the subconscious conscious and understand your decision making processes better, and what what fuels you, or where how you can use your energy more effectively by, it takes time to stick with it, but yeah, the moon rules so many things, our environment, the everyday stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the most powerful things that I love about the moon is what we can see about it, which is the phase. And knowing that just the
Yes.
phase of the moon has such a big impact. When I share that with clients, this is your current natal moon phase, and this is your progressed moon phase, meaning when we
Mhm.
progress the chart, we just look at what the astrology was one day for every year that you are in your age. So, like if you're 30, we look at where the moon was 30 days after you were born and its relation to the sun, because that's what makes the moon full or new or half quarter or another quarter, right? And that means something. When there's a full moon outside, if you think about it, like the stories are people get like excited and people get kind of crazy and the emergency rooms are full on a full moon because there's more energy, we're releasing things, we're getting out there in the world.
Mhm.
And so there's 8 phase. Do you use an 8 phase for the
I
moon?
use the 8 phases of the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but
And
I focus in on the main four:
yeah.
new, first quarter, full, last quarter, but I keep track of all eight. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just extremely powerful to say, this is the phase that you're in. And, if you're in a first quarter and you feel like you're constantly putting out fires, that's because you're in a first quarter phase natally or by progression. And if you're in a balsamic phase and you just like don't care
Oh yeah.
anymore and you just are tired and things just don't seem to be taking root, it's because you're in a composting phase where you have to
Yeah.
let go in order to prepare to let those leaves fall from the trees and sort of like fertilize the earth and the ground and the soil so that you can put down new seeds. Like the pine cones can fall off the tree and then make new pine trees in
Mhm.
that fertile soil. And I think giving people that permission to deal with their energy based on the moon phase is one of the most powerful things that I think clients come away from being like,
Yeah, yeah. I use all eight when I'm talking about the progressed moon, I should say.
yeah,
And I find a lot of clients come in like a feelings of crisis in that third quarter phase, where
ah,
they're like, like the life they thought they want is no longer like lighting them up or satisfying them, and they're feeling like this need to let things go, but feeling guilty about it, or feeling a lot of feeling lost with
yeah,
that third quarter moon. And sometimes people, when they realize that's where they are in their lives and this is natural and it's a phase, they start, I mean,
I love that.
sometimes people just cry when they realize this, because it's
Yeah.
such a relief to know that there's nothing wrong with them. It's just the timing of life. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just permission to just be as you
Permission to
are.
be. Yeah.
And that's so huge. So the other thing that I think is interesting, so you're an Aries moon, I'm a
Mhm.
Scorpio moon. That means both of our moons are ruled by Mars. And I have
Yeah.
found myself, especially this last year, just coming across, certain, we all come across certain patterns, but moon Mars people are one of them. And it's not always as simple as like, oh, they're all Aries moons. No, it's usually moon square Mars, moon conjunct Mars, moon opposite Mars. And I say that because Aries is ruled by Mars and Scorpio is also traditionally ruled by Mars. And so we have this Moon Mars thing in common.
Yeah. Yeah. Where is your Mars?
My Mars is in Sagittarius.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a great combination, I think,
It's all
with
right.
the Scorpio moon and this. So, yeah.
It's in the ninth,
Yeah.
my Mars. How about you?
Yeah, my Mars is in Gemini in my 11th house. So,
Oh,
yeah, so communication station.
yes. And so you're having a Mars return right now because Mars in the sky is in Gemini, which happens only every 2 years.
This Mars retrograde was eye-opening, difficult,
Yeah.
and very much brought some things about myself to my attention that I needed to deal with
Yeah.
about my monkey mind.
Uh, I
Yeah.
think for all of us, really,
Yeah.
if you think about it, Mars and Gemini is a lot about like how we communicate, and Mars wants to do things quickly and it does things in a hot, heated way. And so that means quick tempers and frustration and agitation and irritation. And then you kind of can just like say something to someone. And so I was talking with Mallory Hasty about this Mars retrograde in Gemini back last summer. We recorded an episode about it. And one of the things that we talked a lot about was nonviolent communication. And now that we're almost all the way through the Mars in Gemini, because it just stationed direct after being retrograde since October. I really can see and feel that too, that it's, there's a lot of things with like the monkey mind. I've been there too, just like sort of like thoughts spiraling and it's been really hard. And then that becomes an emotion too, right? The Mars can sometimes, even though it's not, and maybe I don't know if you think that's like because we have Mars ruled moons that we would feel it more intensely when we get that Martian energy, but yeah, the thoughts connected to the actions, connected to the emotions, is something I've been acutely aware of with this Mars and Gemini transit.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot because when it went retrograde squaring Neptune, so that brought a lot of illusions and delusions and confusion. But the quincunx to Pluto, and quincunxes are really powerful, where they're like this irritation about unearthing things about like Gemini mental processes, how we communicate. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
how we even move through the world with transportation. Like I kept telling myself, focus, don't be distracted when you're walking this or that. And then I would fall back into my same kind of,
Yeah.
okay, I'm fiddling with my phone or this and that,
Yeah. I was
it was
talking with my friend who's an astrologer, Lisa Warman, brilliant
oh
astrologer.
yes, I
I'll
know
have her
Lisa.
back. Oh yeah, right. We
Yeah.
all met at ESAR, and
Yeah.
she we were talking the day that Mars stationed direct after this retrograde, and she had to drive about 2 hours north of where we are, and she was a little nervous because she knew Mars was stationing. Gemini is about transportation. Mars is like that kind of martial energy, right? And so she ended up seeing a number of car accidents, semis turning over, things like that. And so I don't like to go into like the catastrophic, but it sometimes it is very literal with the astrology, and we hope that stuff doesn't happen. But that's why when we know about it, we can do something. We can be aware and not be on the front, like you said. Take
Yeah.
precautionary action and just be more aware. And I found that like knowing that that's what's going on has been so helpful to me, not like having a temper or being explosive with my emotions, and like finding a positive way to channel my emotions when I've been really tested by this like Mars Neptune or just the Mars retrograde in general, because it's also quincunx my moon, which is lots of fun.
Ah.
Which is like an irritation and agitation. It's sort of like, I think Rick Levine says it's sort of like when you can't get the right station on the radio and it's sort of like fuzzy and it's like, zzz, I won't do that a lot for the mic, but
Yeah, I love how Bernadette Brady talks about quincunxes, especially in transit, about how they move us into new situations, where we
Mm.
have to release and let go of something to go on. Yeah. So
Uh,
it's like this irritation that puts us in a place that's uncomfortable, but we've got to, we've
keep
got
it
to
moving.
release something to get right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a good transition because one of the other things that the moon does in the sky is, when the sun and the moon and the earth all align, we end up having eclipses. And we're having eclipses in a Mars ruled sign, Aries, starting this year, and then in the opposite sign of Libra, and also in the other Mars ruled sign of Scorpio, opposite Taurus. And so there's this, because Libra and Taurus are both ruled by Venus, Aries and Scorpio are both ruled by Mars. So we're going to have a lot of Moon Mars energy. So, traditionally, I think the most obvious thing is like this masculine and feminine, or receptive and more outward energy. And so I'm just curious, like, do you work with eclipses? What are your thoughts
I
on?
love working with eclipses.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the eclipses will tell you what is going to be unfolding in your life, what areas will be in focus for where you'll have gains, where the North Node is, and where you'll have to let things go, or lessons more difficult where the South Node is. And the nodes take a year and a half, like 18 months to move through a sign. And
Yeah.
so they typically bounce back between 2 houses in your chart, sometimes 4, really changing a part of your life. So I think they're incredible. And even when I do readings, when I do hot take readings, just talking to people about how the eclipses may show up in their lives can be so accurate about what they're going through. Yeah. I
Totally.
think they're so important. They're
Yeah.
the big beginnings and endings in our life where things change. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love about eclipses too, because you're right. The clients, like when you talk with anyone, they get really excited because usually they come to you and they go, "Oh, I really need to move," or "I'm thinking about a podcast."
Yeah.
Or there's a special someone in my life, and you can just see that, you can see the story evolving. If it's like they want to have a podcast, they're moving through a period where like the nodes are about to move into their 10th house of career, and so like their public identity is shifting, and then it's going to move into their ninth house of publishing, and that becomes an opportunity. Or if the nodes and the eclipses are happening in their first house of self and seventh house of committed partnerships, that's like a new energy coming in. But even if it's in the fourth house of home and family and the 10th house of career, that can also be about relationships too, because it's what we call square to that first and seventh house, which makes a really powerful shifting energy coming in, especially if you've got planets there, or
Mhm.
angles there. It's just yeah, you can see that, like, maybe you're going to move because you have a spouse, or your
Yeah.
spouse's career 10th house changes where you live. Or when you get married, your name changes, and your name is really like a 10th house thing. If you think about it, like,
Mhm.
changing the name is a 10th house thing. And also with the moon, one of the things that I found really interesting, I think April Elliott Kent says this, that when you have an eclipse on your moon, it can be like you move house, or there's something about women or feminine people in your
Mhm.
life, or like the needing for care and emotional stuff comes up. But also, like, you could change your name.
Oh.
And so I had the south node go over my moon that just in the past year, and I found myself like wanting a nickname again. And I changed the URL on my website, and I started like signing my emails differently. And
Oh, how funny. Ah, you
yeah, yes, I shed something in order
yeah.
for something new to come about.
I love that. Yeah, I never thought about that, about the name thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's a
what are you looking forward to with these eclipses and the node shifting this next year?
Well, I have an Aries midheaven. The Taurus eclipses, I've always been, when you have an eclipse in your sun sign, sometimes that's an indication of health changes.
Mm,
So I've been a little nervous. Thankfully, all it's been so far is me me starting my podcast. So that's an identity shift, the Celestial Insights podcast, available everywhere.
Yay.
And yeah. And so when it goes into Aries, that's more my 10th house. So seeing how that changes my career. I'm also interested to see the collective energies around the Aries Libra axis,
Yeah.
about, because we're seeing society changing so much with, that Saturn and Aquarius has, restructured society, and now Pluto is moving into Aquarius, which is just going to be really unearthing things and really doing intense transformation on society over the next couple of years. And I'm calling Pluto and Aquarius the power to the people transit, or maybe I should say power and the people, because it's going to be back and forth, Capricorn, the structures and the government and big business versus the collective. And with the North Node going into Aries, I really feel like people will be fired up to have the courage to take action to fight the oppression that we've been experiencing. As you know, in some places it's far more heinous than others, but yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
agree
one of
with
the
you
things I'm excited about.
100%. 100%. And also just like the fact that we're going to have eclipses. We have an eclipse in Aries, and then we have one in Taurus and Scorpio, and then that repeats where we get one of each. And this happens sometimes, but when the nodes finally shift signs, usually we just have them in the two signs that are opposite. And so the fact that we're having these two sets of eclipses this year, and they're happening in both times, really tells me that Taurus and Scorpio, Taurus is about resources. It can be about like money because it relates to what comes from the earth, and gold comes from the earth, bullion comes from the earth. Taurus is kind of a luxurious sign. It likes the fancy things. So like gold and bullion. And, I actually knew a Taurus, and he loves gold. So he would collect gold and silver as his like retirement fund.
Ah,
Yes. And then Scorpio, it's also about money, but sometimes it's more about the debt type of money. And we're already getting a lot of news out there in the country about, the debt ceiling in the United States, and is it going to be a thing? Are they going to lift the debt ceiling? And how these days we're not tied to the gold standard since 1971. And money is mostly created from debt. So we have this like Taurus, Scorpio, money and debt axis. And then the student loan crisis is another thing that comes up. Layoffs, people losing their jobs, while executives, which I see as this Aries Libra thing, executives, Aries, laying off tens, like Microsoft today announced they're going to lay off 10,000 workers, which is only 5%. That's like only 5%. That's 10,000 individual people, and individual families are now going to be impacted, and possibly more, because now people, like, even if you're an individual, you can be a part of multiple families. If you have kids with someone and you divorce them and then you have a new family, your income impacts multiple families. So it could actually be like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 families being impacted by the loss of income that happen when you get laid off. And I think that's a lot of part of the story is how can we take care of one another? And the first thing I thought was, I don't care what company it is. I'm not, trying to get into any trouble here naming companies or anything like that. But I really want to hear why executives are not taking pay cuts to save 10,000 employees' lives.
Yeah, Tim Cook from Apple took a pay cut. I know he's one that did. Yeah.
They can live without their salary.
Exactly.
People who live paycheck to paycheck cannot. And Scorpio,
but it's all about corporate profits and the greed, which is it's backfiring in terms of, I feel like the American economy with the, the South Node in Scorpio and the North Node in Taurus, we're like teetering on a precipice where we're just like one push could, could be really devastating. And with Pluto going to square Jupiter, wealth, transformation of wealth, and the nodes. This year, I think there's going to be big changes in terms of, and I think
that, it's Scorpio is also about its intensity, right? And so my
Mhm.
Scorpio moon, eclipses are moons. So we're talking about like this emotional intensity. It's really like an opportunity for healing, which is also coming up with some other things like Jupiter is going to conjunct Chiron in Aries, and Chiron is about healing to a certain extent as well. And I think we're going to be asked to use our money, our economy, change our economy, and be able to use our resources, Taurus, in ways to heal Scorpio, the people, Libra, with this, or
Mhm.
you could say like Pluto and Aquarius, the power and the people. And so it's just about like, how are we caring for one another? Because capitalism does not care for people, it only cares for profits. It doesn't care for the earth,
Mhm.
it only cares for corporations. And so we have the power to change that. I was just listening to a podcast this morning, Pitchfork Economics. This is one of my favorite. I'm just looking for what the book was called. There was someone
Ooh,
named Kim Stanley. uh
I'm gonna write that down. Pitchfork Economics. I love
Yeah,
that.
with Nick Hanauer. And so this episode was Kim Stanley Robinson, and he wrote a book, The Ministry for the Future. He's written a number of novels, and it's
Ah,
sci-fi. And so the episode I'm talking about is called Sci-Fi Economics from January 17th, 2023. And we talk about how the story is so, they talk about how the story is so important, the story that we tell. And that Robinson is, an amazing storyteller, because he clearly conveys economic concepts by painting a picture of what the future will look like with
mhm.
capitalism if we don't start to change how we deal with the economy. And most of it has to do um, with environmental disaster, which is another Taurus thing, especially with Uranus in Taurus. And so, how
Mhm.
does our economy impact the Earth and the world? And back to Pluto squaring the nodes, especially, I think the last time we saw Pluto square the nodes was in 2015 and 16, I believe. And
Oh,
that
okay.
is when the Swiss franc lost its cap or something like that. So we had some changes in global leadership. Ban Ki-moon took over for Kofi Annan, and then we also had some changes in the economy. The Greek debt crisis happened. So
Oh
this is
yeah.
something where we do see the economy coming to a crisis point and saying this is no longer sustainable. And so it's important to be prepared with new opportunities, which we actually have as well, because Jupiter is going to make two important aspects to Saturn this year. And when Jupiter and Saturn talk to one another, what we find is Jupiter's expansion and its opportunity. It's like positive blessings and abundance. And Saturn is, it's like the long-term sustainable. So as Georgia Stathis says, you should be prepared with investment opportunities when Jupiter and Saturn make aspects. And the two aspects are Jupiter is going to make its opening semi-square to the Saturn Jupiter conjunction that happened on December 21st of 2020. And then the second one is that Jupiter's going to sextile Saturn. Jupiter will be in Aries, Saturn will be, I believe in,
Taurus, Pisces.
it is Taurus Pisces. It is when it happens, Taurus Pisces. And it's around that time when Pluto and Jupiter are square too. So perhaps this Pluto, Jupiter, and Pluto square the nodes crisis, um, and then the Saturn Jupiter opportunities are going to be really connected. And so if we're prepared with new economic models or new ways that we can care for one another, whether that's like mutual aid or whatever at all levels on an individual and
What
collective.
is it? The minimum income, like
Yes,
that's being
universal
proposed
basic
by
income.
Andrew Yang and other people. I
Yeah.
wonder about the like, I don't know exactly what it's called, but that economies are pegged to the dollar. I wonder if that's going to change
that
this year.
it's a pretty big problem because the dollar is really just created through debt. It's really just paper. There's nothing to
Yeah.
back it up. And so if the dollar fails, it's a pretty big deal. Yeah. And so I do think it is, this whole thing about money and individual leadership and collective leadership is a big part of the story. And just to tie it back to the individual, you mentioned that the North Node has been on your sun. And so, sometimes when we have an eclipse on the sun, it can bring up issues with our vitality. Right. So how much energy we have, what kind of energy we have. But the North Node usually is like, actually it's interesting. People think of the North Node in two ways, right? There's like the Vedic way, and then there's the more like Western way. So I'm curious, like how you see it. Do you see the North Node as like too hungry and swallowing things up?
It can be, especially when it's associated with Mars. It can be like that Vedic, too hungry, but I mostly see it as positive, like
Yeah.
pulling us forward into a positive direction and moving. But I always tell my clients, if you have an eclipse to your sun, moon, first house, sixth house, Mars, yeah, anything comes up, get a health check, because it can be symbolic of the timing of some kind of health thing coming up.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah.
so interesting now that you say it like that. I mean, I guess I knew this as an astrologer, but just sometimes when you say something, you get a new understanding. And I did have a South Node eclipse on my moon last May, and a couple months before then, I went to like the emergency room because I wasn't feeling well, and I was like, something's just wrong. It's been a couple days. And they're like, you need to get your gallbladder out. And now the spiritual meaning of like issues with the gallbladder is not letting go. And what do you do when the South Node hits? You're asked to let go. And so I've done a lot of emotional work on being like, I let go, I release, I allow, I move freely, I allow
Oh, and your
things to
Mars
move
and
through.
Sagittarius, the
Yeah.
sign of the liver.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. And so one of the things was like needing to sweat, needing to like get stuff out. And so I'm here in Arizona where not today, but most days it's very, very hot. So all I have to do is like walk outside. It's like dripping sweat, which is great. And I've done a lot of healing work on it. So I didn't have the surgery, which
Oh, good.
yeah, not recommended for all. Make your own personal decisions. I'm not a medical
But if you don't
practitioner,
have to
but
get it out, if you can
mm-mm.
solve it through, and with the Scorpio moon, you can like heal yourself in some ways, like that regeneration
Yeah.
energy that Scorpio has.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
the liver regenerates every 90 days,
Yeah.
which is incredible to think about. And yeah, the liver is connected to the gallbladder because it creates bile. And then it's really a calcification thing that happens. Saturn was also square my moon. And so that's like a cooling. And
Classic.
so yeah, it's a thing where you get stones when you have like a Mars Saturn thing going on, which I had many times. So
I
yeah,
have
really.
that coming next year. Saturn will square my, oh no, 2025, Saturn will square my Mars.
Saturn will square your Mars. Well, you
Mhm.
know what? I'm gonna have Saturn square my Mars this year coming up, and I plan to be more physically active. So, but I've also got them co-present in Sagittarius, so I, might be a little. I feel it natally.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Are they closely conjunct?
They're not.
Okay.
They're not, but yeah, it's a whole. I feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel that gas break, gas break?
Uh-huh. Yep. Yep. I sure do. Um, yeah. So also curious, shifting gears a little bit. Um, do you work with the sun moon midpoint? Because that's kind of an eclipse thing too.
Yeah, I do. In fact, my sun moon midpoint is at 29 degrees of Aries. So this next eclipse is right on my sun moon midpoint.
Oh,
So yeah, so I like looking at it especially when I do synastry between people. So the interrelationship of charts between two, especially like romantic couples, but
okay.
anyone who has that sun moon connection, that midpoint connection, it can be important. They can be an important person in your life or your relationships, and it can tell you about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I find that when I find people who have anything really on my sun moon midpoint, it's an
Mhm.
immediate knowing, immediate connection. I knew I
Yep.
liked you. I didn't know why. Of course you like me.
What's your sun moon midpoint?
It's 22 Sagittarius.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So Yeah, there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of generations that have outer planets there. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, and then asteroids too. I think my my mom's name, the asteroid of her name, is on my sun moon midpoint.
Oh, how cute. I love that. Yeah, I see that all the time. And
Yeah,
when you look up your kabillion names and asteroids, yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's pretty
yeah,
cool.
that's great.
So what haven't we talked about that we should talk about the
We
year
talked
ahead, or about the moon, or
eclipses, the nodes. Um,
we covered a lot.
yeah, we talked about Mars retrograde.
We did.
Mercury's going direct today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think oh, I know what we didn't talk about. Well, the Mercury retrogrades in Earth signs. I just want to say, like, sometimes they've been really difficult for me, especially in air.
Yeah.
But this Mercury retrograde in Capricorn has been wonderful, like with the double retrograde when Mars was retrograde, for bringing things to my attention that needed to be fixed in
Ooh.
terms of like some and like helping me learn like better processes
Yeah.
from things that have been like shown to me by like an old assistant did things one way, and through a difficulty where Mercury retrograde, I couldn't do something in my system I wanted to do. I learned that there was a better way. So I found the Capricorn one to be very positive on a personal level.
Hmm.
Maybe because Capricorn trines my Taurus stuff and
I
my
think
Virgo
so.
stuff.
Is
But
it
that Libra one like almost sent me over the edge last time. So I'm hoping the Earth ones are positive this year.
Yeah, I think so. I think they'll be able to do some good things for us, be able to help us like actually plan things out and
Yep.
work on projects and move things forward. And really, I think that the signature of Mars retrograde is you try things, they don't work, it goes retrograde, and then you have to like kind of try it again. And because it's in Gemini, it's more of like a 4 times thing, because Gemini is 2, and then it's retrograde, and then it's 4. But you're right. I think when both Mercury and Mars were retrograde, it seemed really easy. But then when Mars went direct and Mercury has still been retrograde, this week has been a little weird, but still good, like not bad.
Yeah,
And I think
just
in
like
the end,
technical glitch. I've had the typical technical glitches, but
yeah,
I've had some good stuff come to light.
yeah. And I think Mercury and Taurus, Mercury can be the accountant sometimes.
Mhm.
And Taurus, like we said, is money. And so that's a really great opportunity for us to look at our tax. I wouldn't necessarily file your taxes on Mercury retrograde unless there's like a good void moon or something like that, because that just tells me, I don't know, they're
Oh, it's gonna
come back
come
to
back to bite you.
me. But like think
That's a
about your
good
money.
note to make sure I get my taxes done. I do not want to get audited. No,
Yeah.
I do not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the IRS is like, they're getting more attention of like, oh, do we need to hire more people because we can't hire enough people? And part of it is that people are getting these notices and they're trying to pay, or they're asking questions about why they need to pay. And all these people are feeling that they're in debt, Scorpio, and then can't pay Taurus, the government, for things. And so
Yeah.
maybe Mercury retrograde will address the IRS, at least in the United States, obviously,
Ah,
and what's going on there. But it is time for us to rethink about our values and what's important, not just money, but take an accounting, right?
mhm.
And then put a plan together that's very simple to bring us back to, I think Taurus is about the simple pleasures in life and the things that are really, truly luxurious, which sometimes can just be like sitting in the grass and the
Yes.
sun, like very simple, but like you just can't put a price on sitting by the ocean, or like whatever that thing is. um
Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
Yeah, and actually a bad thing happened today with the Mercury retrograde in Capricorn.
Oh
On the
no.
day it's stationing, a bunch of B of A customers, Bank of America customers,
Yes.
realized some money was missing or in
Yes.
their accounts. So hopefully that's something that will be fixed quickly and it's not like,
That's
you know,
wild. I know. I
cyber
saw that and
attack or something.
I was like, is this a, I don't think people would joke about that, but is this a prank, or is this, because
No,
I did
Sun
see some
Pluto
posts
is
about that.
today.
Oh my
Spotlight on
gosh.
big wealth.
And
Yeah, or
finding the hidden
banking.
secrets.
Find hidden,
Yeah.
yeah,
The disclosure
yeah,
sometimes is, however you want to say disclose. Usually disclosure is about aliens, but it's disclosing things, right?
mhm, mhm.
That's wild. And I had a Bank of America account and it got switched to another company. And I'm like, Goodness,
I know,
like,
I don't have
how
anything with
lucky.
them. So
Wow, that's
I'm
so wild.
A-okay. But I hope everyone gets their money back.
Yeah,
Go
quickly
straight.
and
Yeah.
some for damages, because those people, if you can't pay your bill and you get a late fee
Hmm.
because the Bank of America gave you, didn't they, someone took your money, that's wild.
Yeah, that's
I
so
wonder if
on
it ends
point
up
with
being
Mercury retrograde.
like a Robin Hood story. And I don't mean like the app that does the trading. I mean like
Real Robin Hood
real
stealing from the
Robin
rich.
Hood. Yeah. Oh, that would be so wild, especially with Mars and Gemini, because sometimes that's the trickster.
Yeah. Yeah. It could
And
be cyber or something, cyber attack. Yeah, we'll see.
yeah, but then this Mercury retrograde that will happen in Virgo. Virgo's the sign of service, and so I
Yeah.
really hope that we can use that energy to think about what are our talents and skills and expertise, which is another Virgo thing.
Hmm.
Chiron was traditionally, Barbara Hand Clow says Chiron is ruled by Virgo.
Yeah.
So how can we heal ourselves and others, and what is a thing that like we struggled with that we can then teach future generations to deal with. Mercury goes retrograde, we reflect, we go back, we talk with people that we, from a while ago, and then we come back with that knowledge, with that information, with the plan, with the details, um, to share that expertise, hopefully with the community. And then we get one final Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, and we kind of get to look back at the beginning of the year and look and do a retrospective of the year and see, okay, what did happen and where do we need to go next year?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, Venus retrograde this year in
Yes.
Leo, 4 months of Venus in Leo. That's
Yeah.
my second house. I'm a little nervous about that. I mean, it's nice to
Hmm.
have Venus, that Venus energy, but when she goes retrograde and she stirs up a little trouble, I think we'll be hearing a lot about like celebrities or royalty or things, Leo things at that
We
time.
definitely are going
Beauty.
to hear about it, because one of the things that I noticed was that Prince William and Kate got married 12 years ago. So they're having a Jupiter return when the Jupiter Chiron
Mm.
conjunction happens in March. So
Mm.
um so that'll be 12 years of their marriage, and the Venus star point, which is when Venus and the sun meet up, is going to trine like almost exactly partile the Jupiter Chiron. I think it's the Jupiter Chiron conjunction. Yeah, at like
Mm.
2019, something like that.
Oh, that'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see what happens with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how long King Charles will be king, is I've been wondering.
I know a lot of people have been talking about that. I mean, at least maybe whispering and not so much. I don't know what they talk about in the UK. I would imagine they don't talk about it like as much over there, because that would be maybe sacrilege, or maybe I'm sure
Mm.
some people do, but um there was something that came up where people were like, no, it doesn't look like it's gonna last long. I don't remember what the signature was though.
I don't know, but there's a Saros series that started, and this is an eclipse series that's like 1300 years long,
Mhm.
that started when the current English, I guess, royalty, and it ends in 2030 something. And there's been predictions that William will be the last king
Dang, yeah.
or queen of England
Yeah.
based on that Saros series ending. And with what Harry's doing, I did a YouTube about Harry's chart and his book Spare. Yeah,
Oh,
because that's
wow.
pretty wild. And what's so interesting, two people I'm looking at this year are, King Charles and President Biden both have Taurus moons at 0 Taurus. So Pluto's squaring their moons, and yeah, and Jupiter's going to be on their moon. So we know Charles is supposed to be coronated, but President Biden's in some hot water right now around
Yeah.
his classified documents.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then the North Node will go over his moon this year
Yep. Yep.
in around the second week of July, I think, around
Wow.
July. Well, on the 17th is when it goes into Libra and Aries.
Mhm.
So it'll be just maybe a couple days before then, depending on the exact minutes of his moon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that 5-degree lunar eclipse in Taurus,
Mm.
that's that'll be like right almost on his moon.
Yeah.
In November, I guess that will be.
Is that the November one? I know there's
Yeah,
there's going to be one on May 5th, and I've been looking at that because in the United
yeah.
States we quote unquote celebrate Cinco de Mayo, which really just means people,
Mhm.
somewhat disrespectfully try to enjoy themselves
Yeah,
with
yeah,
too much
14
alcohol.
Scorpio.
Oh, it's at 14 Scorpio. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so I just feel like a big party day in the US. Um, and
with
I
the
think
lunar
that,
eclipse. Yeah.
yeah, Jazz Fest, I believe, is happening in New Orleans on that day as well. And I'm just
Oh,
like, y'all
I'll
just
be
make
far
good
away from.
choices.
I'll be far away from crowds
Yeah,
that day. No,
yeah.
thank you.
It's
Not
gonna
a
be
lunar
wild.
eclipse in Scorpio.
Yeah. Have
No
fun by
thanks.
yourself at home or with some friends, a small group, just like,
Mhm.
not stay in and hunker down and like close your curtains, but like just like
Just
be
not being in
easy.
a huge event is just my
Yeah.
personal
I mean that
thing.
the
Although,
oh, go ahead.
yeah.
I was just gonna
No,
say like
that's just my
last year.
personal thing, especially after that 29-degree, something big is popping off with the eclipse at 29 Aries.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to be, yeah,
I'm seeing a
those
lot of people
boom,
come
boom.
forward with points there. Like they've got different planets or angles or the sun moon midpoint there. They're showing up in my consultations right now a lot. And they want to talk. And I'm like, yeah, just wait a couple months. You'll have some clarity after March because really what's going to happen, we have all these planets changing signs in March. Saturn is moving into Pisces. That's huge for a 2.5 year cycle, a 5 year cycle,
Yeah.
a 27 to 30 year cycle. And then we've got Pluto moving into Aquarius at the end of March. And then we've got Jupiter Chiron conjunction, Venus Eris, which is once a year, but they're happening within hours of each other. And actually, the Jupiter Chiron hasn't happened for 51 years, right?
Mhm.
And that brings us back to 1971 about the money and the gold standard.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to talk to you about that on my Instagram
Yes.
live. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. So tell people when that's gonna happen and then also like how they can get in touch with you and what you've got going on.
Okay. So we're talking. Ah, is it next month or is it? Okay. So Friday, February 24th, Taylor will be on my Instagram live, and I'm at Astrology by Celeste everywhere. So I have Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, although Instagram is my main platform. So if you follow me there, just be aware that there are a bunch of fake accounts that pretend to be me. I will never slide into your DMs. With this Mars retrograde in my 11th house, it has been wild.
Oh
They
no.
like, and part of my 12th house. So these hidden enemies constantly attacking me and trying
Yeah.
to steal money. And some people have fallen for it. So anyway, I will never slide into your DMs. Yeah, my website is astrologybyceleste.com. I have monthly new moon workshops. I really feel part of my purpose is to inspire people to go after their dreams and expand their lives. So, setting intentions with the new moon is one of the best ways to do that. And so, in the workshops, you learn astrology, about the archetype of the signs. I love to bring in like fixed stars, asteroids, all sorts of stuff. And then I do hot takes on people's charts. So I'll do, just what I see from your chart, what I think will come up for the moon or anything else I see. So those are $35, or you can buy a pack of 4 for 98 with my workshops. Yeah. So they
That's
happen every
awesome.
month. Yeah, I love doing them. Yeah, people enjoy them. And then my Moon Mastery is my signature program where you learn all about the moon. So regardless of your level of astrology, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, and sometimes I have professional astrologers come and take it, because I feel like the moon kind of gets like short shrift
It
in some,
does.
the sun gets all the focus. The moon is just as important. From Earth, they both look the same size. The sun is the conscious mind, the moon, the subconscious. Making the unconscious conscious is one of the best things about working with the moon. It can help you live more in tune to the natural cycles, as well as learn so much about yourself and others and how you relate to people and how you connect or don't. So I teach all things: eclipses, the nodes, the moon phases, both birth and progressed, all sorts of things. It's called Moon Mastery, and it's a 6-week or a 12-week course. There's 101 and 201. And yeah, that's going to start March 14th. So you can get on my waiting list if you'd like to learn more about that. Or I also have a free guide called Setting Intentions with the Moon, and that puts you on my my newsletter, and you get new moon and full moon emails with my newsletter. Yeah. And you also, with my free guide, get this nice handy dandy all of the moon phases, the first quarter, full and last, all for 2023. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's super handy and really helpful.
I'll send it to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you, Celeste. This has just been a really wonderful conversation, really inspiring and interesting and new ideas. And I really hope that folks connect with you. So please check out Celeste, go on our website, check out the Moon Mastery class, connect on Instagram as well. And then check us out February 24th on the live. So thanks all, and see you again next time.
Thank you, Taylor. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed the episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to find more heart-centered, forward-thinking folks just like you. Don't forget to take a screenshot, share it in your Instagram stories, and tag me at Taylor Shuler Astrology. If you're interested in an astrology consultation with me, you can book online at my website, taylorshuler.com. If you like my digs and you're looking for short-term furnished rentals because you're a digital nomad like me, or just because, don't forget to use the link in the show notes or code Taylor_C6I at hellolanding.com for $250 off your rental. See you next week. Bye.